Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Julie and welcome back to the 365 days of weather tracking project. This is a video collaboration with my very good friend Janice in Australia. Every month we document the weather in Canada and Australia. This month we are documenting the month of October. And of course for me here, I wanted to use beautiful leaves because the fall is where all the leaves change colors and it's such a really pretty time to look at the changing of the leaves. But when I floated this idea through Janice, she was like, I'm not sure about that because our weather are so different, and you will see that in her video. I did manage to bring these into my layout and I'll show you that in a moment. But for the base page, we are going to use this diamond shape, which is a tag from the all-purpose tag set. And I think that this will work for both of us really, really nicely. So I wanted to quickly show you, this is how I track my weather. And I kind of used the sketch here to look at what my page was going to look like. And as you can see, there's a lot of greens and a lot of toffee. Well, not that much toffee, but there's a lot of green, which means that my weather was pretty much between 12 and 10 degrees Celsius. And I really wanted to bring in, let me show you my photos here. I really wanted to bring in really orangey kind of photos. So these are the changing of the leaves. They are so, so gorgeous. You can see here that it is just something to behold when you see all of those leaves change colors. And really, it's the last hurrah before all the snow comes. So I really wanted to document that, and of course, wanted to document a few Halloween photos. So I'm going to show you how I incorporate all of these diamond shapes with these gorgeous leaves. All right, so let me clear out some of these things here because I want to show you the base pages that I use for my layout. Because I've got a lot of green and I wanted to add some orange, I needed to find a base page that was going to work for both those colors. And this is what I found in my stash. Now this is really, really old. This is from, I think it's called Passenger Kit, but I really liked the color, and the script on it is actually really close to the color Mocha. So let me add my photos to this page and you'll see how they look really good against this background. And when I bring in these colors, it just kind of matches and everything looks really good. So I'm going to clear off my space right here and I'm going to start putting these pages together. Okay, so you can see that these base pages really complement the photos, and they're not going to fight too much with the greens that I have to use to document each of the days. So what I do is I write the day on the back and then I flip it over and I start to put those down. So I'm going to have to cut some of these in half. If you use the Cricut Design Space file that Janice created, you're gonna just be able to go and cut and not have to worry about cutting these in half. But I wanted to show an option without using the Cricut. So you can see here where I got my inspiration for this page. It's got the toffee color. The avocado is always a little bit harder to work with, to be honest with you, but I'm going to make it work. The diamonds are going to run on each side of the page. You have 15 and 15 for 30, and then for 31 we're going to use a larger one here. And again, in the Design Space file, it's all done for you. So what I decided to do is use just a stitch square. I cut that in half, and this represents for me day 31, and this is going to be used to incorporate the title of my page or the month. I'm going to add the month of October. So for the month of October, I am using the months of the year. I've brought this back. I did use it throughout the entire project, and Janice does create what she calls word art in the Cricut Design Space file, so you have both options. So this was a really kind of large area, and the month of October here is not really big, so I kind of had to work on a cluster to make this work. I've used again a couple more of those tags from the all-purpose tags. They actually work really great for titles, and I think I'm going to put mine here off-centered, or to the inside of the left page. I'm going to add a few leaves, of course, but I think that that's going to work really nicely. Again, in the design space file, you have another great title here for fall days, but I am going to start assembling or laying down my diamonds here so that we can add our photos. Okay, so I'm going to start here at the bottom, and as I mentioned to you, I write the numbers of the day. So for me, this day represented the weather, and I know that it has to, so I kind of have to put half of the diamond at the bottom. I also have a little circle that I'm going to have to contend with. So this is how I'm going to start my row. I'm going to speed up through this process only because it's like watching paint dry. You don't need to watch all of it. I'm going to bring in my Friskar cutter because I actually have to cut these in half, the ones that are going to go along the edge. These ones here I'll just trim off, and I'm going to leave a really small spacing. The idea here was that this was actually going to fit half. So let me see if I put this in here and I line up my 2 points, right? It's got to come out a tiny little bit. So this is how these are going to go. So I'm going to end up with quite a few little triangles, I think. This is coming out 3 inches from the edge. At the 9-inch right here, I'm just going to do a really faint pencil line so that I know that I'm staying straight with all of the assembly right here. So I'm going to move this down. I'm going to double check that I'm nice and straight. I'm going to move that over. And we're going to start the assembly right here. Okay, so I think that that is a really good start. So I'm just going to go ahead and add those in there, and I'll do the same for the left page. So I'm just mindful of my numbers, and I also think that I'm going to offset or rotate my little circles. That way, if I want to add embellishments, I think it's going to make it easier. So you can see that my little diamond is hitting my cheek line if you want. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for all of them. So you can see here that I'm moving right along and I'm adding all of my little diamonds. I'm cutting them off on the left hand side, and later on you'll see that I actually did use a piece of twine just to finish that off a little nicer. I'm not leaving a lot of spacing in between each of them, and I want to make sure that every time I add the ones on the left, I'm keeping true to that 3-inch mark. So I'm going to mark off the other side right here again, and I'm going to repeat the process. I'm going to sort out my days so that they are identified properly, and then just like that we are done and we can continue to the next step. Okay, so I'm going to move to the next step, which is bringing in these gorgeous leaves right here. Now, you could probably see where this is going already. I'm definitely going to do an oldie but a goodie, a rock and roll technique, and I'm going to bring in these gorgeous colors right here. So this is going to be my addition of the orange, and then I'm going to kind of blend it all out with these two colors right here because it blends with the color combination that I'm having to use this month because of the weather. Now, if you missed that at the beginning, each of these little diamonds represent a day in the month and the weather based on a chart. And this is the chart right here that we are using. So you can see here that the weather was still getting, you know, up to in the 20s, and even here in 27, which was really, really warm for us here in Canada. All right, so let me show you this technique. I'm sure you know what it is, but in case you do not, this is called the rock and roll technique, and this is going to allow me to bring in that really pretty orange that you can see in my photos. So I'm going to start with the lightest shade, which is Nectarine, and then I'm going to use some papaya. And I basically just looked at my photos and then I just pulled some colors. And then I'm going to use a little bit of Scarlet, not a lot, but I am going to use a tiny little bit. Now I flip my mat over, and I'm going to move my photos here so that I don't, get ink all over them. So basically what I've done here is I've just used my block. This is a 3x3 block. If you ever wonder, they actually write the size right on the block. So I make sure that I cut my piece of cardstock just a tiny little bit bigger because these all come with dies. And I'm going to start with the lightest shade right here, which is the Nectarine. And I am going to really press into it and pick up all of the color on all of the leaf. And these here are very forgiving. So if you've never done rock and roll before, you always start with the lightest shade of your ink. And for me here, it was Nectarine. And then I'm going to roll my image into the Paprika color here. And I actually just did the rock and roll at the bottom. I didn't bring it all the way up. And then I'm just going to give it a little tiny bit on the tips of the leaves with some Scarlet, just to give it a really nice look. And then I'm just going to press that in. And it is so pretty. It's such a pretty technique. So you can look at that and you see that my leaf has tons of color. So I'm going to go again. I'm going to make a few because they are all going to be different. There's no way you can make this look the same. So I'm going to go in again with the lightest shade, and then I'm going to add some right here at the bottom. And then I'm going to bring this closer, you can see. So I take my image and I just kind of hit just a bit with the color. You can kind of see because these are clear and you can see exactly where you're adding the color. It just makes a regular image look instantly fabulous. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to do, I think I have room for 2 more. I'm going to do the top of this one, and then I'm just going to gently add some to the tips. Now see how you've got the bottom instead of the top, and I always go in the light and then I go into the darker and then the darkest shade at the end. Alright, so this one there's a lot of yellow. So let me put these away so that I don't mess everything up. This is when I would normally mess things up. Now there's a few things you can do. I can die cut these and leave them as is, or you can also do them on colored cardstock. So I tried this on, this is the Nectarine cardstock, so you can do that, which gives a different look. And this one here, what I decided to do is I decided to add a little bit of ink blending. So you're thinking, well, why would you blend if you can just use a colored cardstock? These are the differences right here. So I'm going to go die cut these, and then I'll show you how I just added a little bit of ink blending to the images to make them pop. Okay, so I'm just going to give you the highlights on how I transformed my leaves. So this one here is done on French vanilla. I've used my die and I've cut it out, and then I'm going to bring in my blender brushes, and I am going to add a little bit of color to them. Now, if you look at these ones right here, I did add Paprika and Nectarine, and also if it was a little bit too bright, I went back with a little bit of Toffee. Okay, so I'm going to go in with my blender brush in the lightest shade, and I'm going to add this to the leaf, and you can see that just by adding a little bit of color, it really changes the whole look of it. So I'm going to add some here, and then I'm going to go a little bit at the top, and I'm going to add this color, and I really do find that it really makes a big difference when I add this to my layout. Now, I'm not going to show you the entire process for all of them, but I just wanted you to get an appreciation for how you can transform pretty much anything. So this is how I got my leaves with these two colors, and then if you find that that's a little bit too bright, you can definitely go ahead and add a little bit of Toffee, and it just gives it a more natural look. So I'm not going to show you the entire process for all of them, but I just thought that you might want to see how I got those colors. Now, to further give them dimension, I also used my stylus, and it's very easy. I just literally followed the lines, the vein line of the leaf, and just the main ones, like not all of the small ones. And I'm just going to further shape it. So I'm going to fold on those, and then I'm going to use my bone folder, and I'm just going to give them a little bit of movement, and I really like how that worked. So you see that? Instantly you have some dimension. So I'm going to bring back my layout, and I'm going to talk you through all of the leaves that I colored and the dimension that I gave them. Alright, so through the magic of video, I have gone ahead and I've done like a dry assembly here, and I'm liking the way that this is looking. I really like the addition of the leaves. Even if I have diamonds here that are in the green tones, I think that it really complements the page really nicely. I'm going to fuss here because I want to hide that little hole. Definitely I have the opportunity here to add a little bit of glitter or gems on my page. I did also use the block alphabet. Now, in the Cricut Design Space file, you will see that there's a really nice word art that was included. I just decided to keep it all with dies for this layout right here. So I am going to get busy adhering all of these down. You can see by doing the rock and roll technique on these leaves that I was able to incorporate my leaves in my layout, and I'm quite happy with that. Alright, so I've gone ahead and I've completed my layouts right here, and I'm super happy that I was able to add my leaves to highlight my photos because it is such a beautiful time of year. So let's go through some of the details here. So here I've got my title that was stamped using the months of the year. I added a few gems. I don't know if you remember, but I had little holes that I had to deal with, so another opportunity to add a little bit of bling. I love the way that these pages turned out. I did add a little bit of twine here just to kind of add a bit of a separation between my cut edges. I just felt that it gave it a more finished look. I did add here my title with 3D foam dots, and I did do these in 2 layers. So the first layer is in mocha and the second layer is in French vanilla. I'm really excited on how these turned out. Even though the only colors that I did use were the greens and the toffee, the add-on of the leaves in the pop of orange really completes my pages for this month. Now I just have to come back and add a little bit of journaling. But next, I'd like for you to head on over to Janice's channel and see what she did with this same layout using her Australian weather. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next month.